The Magic Calabash, a tale of wishes and consequences. It was a dark, quiet evening when Ada stumbled upon the clay pot buried in her late grandmother's backyard. The wind howled softly, and the air carried the scent of damp earth. Ada had been digging for yams to prepare a simple dinner for her siblings. Her hands were calloused, her back ached, and hunger gnawed at her stomach. Just as she pushed her hoe into the soil one last time, it struck something hard. At first, she thought it was a rock, but as she brushed away the dirt, the smooth curve of a clay pot emerged. The pot was no ordinary vessel. Its surface was adorned with intricate carvings of swirling patterns and tiny symbols. A faint hum seemed to emanate from it, making the hair on Ada's arms stand on end. Suddenly, a soft whisper came from the pot, startling her so much that she dropped it. "What do you desire most?" the pot asked, its voice smooth and melodic, like water flowing over stones. Ada's breath caught in her throat. She stared at the pot, unsure if she was dreaming or if hunger was playing tricks on her mind. But the voice spoke again, this time louder. "What do you desire most?" Tears welled up in Ada's eyes. She wasn't the type to cry easily, but the question pierced her heart. What didn't she desire? She wanted food to fill her siblings' empty bellies. She wanted the roof over their heads to stop leaking when it rained. She wanted to stop feeling so tired, so defeated. And without thinking, she whispered back, "I wish for food for my family." The pot began to glow softly, casting a golden light over the dark garden. Ada stumbled back, shielding her eyes as the light grew brighter. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the glow faded, leaving behind something incredible. Baskets of food, yam, rice, vegetables, even a small roasted chicken, appeared before her. Ada fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the sight. She reached out to touch the food, half expecting it to disappear, but it was real. She clutched the pot tightly and whispered, "Thank you," though she wasn't sure if the pot could hear her. Her heart swelled with gratitude, but a sliver of unease crept in. What kind of magic was this? And why had it chosen her? That evening, Ada carried the baskets of food home with trembling hands. Her siblings, Chike and Neka, sat huddled by the fire, trying to keep warm. Their faces lit up when they saw her, but their excitement quickly turned to confusion as they noticed the abundance in her arms. "Ada, where did you get all this food?" Chike asked, his eyes as wide as calabash bowls. "It's a blessing from Grandma," Ada replied quickly, her voice trembling with half-truths. She didn't want to tell them about the pot. How could she explain something she didn't fully understand herself? The children didn't press further. They were too hungry to question a miracle. Ada watched as they devoured the food, her heart swelling with both relief and unease. She wanted to cry, but instead, she forced herself to smile. For now, she told herself, it was enough that her siblings were fed and happy. The next morning, as the sun rose over the village, Ada stared at the calabash sitting on the shelf. It seemed ordinary now, just a simple clay pot. But Ada knew better. She couldn't forget the soft glow or the whisper that had granted her wish. Her siblings were still asleep, their faces peaceful for the first time in weeks. Ada thought about their tiny, crumbling house, the patched roof, and the torn clothes they wore. Could the pot fix these things too? Her hands trembled as she picked it up. "I wish for money," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The pot vibrated slightly, and then it glowed. Golden coins spilled out, clinking as they hit the floor. Ada's eyes widened, and she fell to her knees, scooping up the coins with shaking hands. "This will change everything," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. She imagined fixing their home, buying books for her siblings, and maybe even starting a small business. Her heart raced with excitement, but a small voice in the back of her mind warned her to be careful. She ignored it. This was her chance to finally provide the life her family deserved. Weeks passed, and Ada's life changed in ways she never imagined. The crumbling house was repaired, the roof no longer leaked, and her siblings had new clothes and enough food to eat every day. She was even able to send them to school, something that once seemed impossible. But as Ada looked around at her new life, she felt a growing unease. The calabash still sat on the shelf, its carved patterns gleaming faintly in the dim light. It had granted her 2 wishes already, but she couldn't shake the feeling that its magic came at a price. One evening, as she was preparing dinner, Neko tugged on her sleeve. "Ada, where does all this come from?" she asked, her young eyes wide with curiosity. Ada hesitated, her heart pounding. "It's a gift," she said finally. But even as the words left her mouth, she felt the weight of the lie. She didn't want to burden her siblings with the truth, but the secrecy was beginning to wear on her. The villagers began to talk. Ada, the once poor orphan struggling to care for her siblings, now seemed to have an endless supply of resources. People whispered behind her back, speculating about her sudden fortune. One day, an elderly woman approached Ada as she walked through the market. "Child," the woman said, her voice low and wary, "be careful of gifts that seem too good to be true. Magic has a way of demanding payment." Ada froze, her chest tightening. She forced a smile and thanked the woman, but her words lingered in Ada's mind. That night, she sat by the calabash, her hands trembling as she traced its carvings. "Are you cursed?" she whispered to the pot. It didn't respond, but the silence felt heavier than before. Despite her doubts, Ada couldn't resist making one last wish. Her siblings deserved even more, she told herself. She deserved more. "I wish for land," she said, her voice firm despite the knot in her stomach. The calabash glowed, and by morning, Ada found herself the owner of several plots of fertile farmland. But the next day, the first sign of trouble appeared. The village well dried up suddenly, leaving everyone desperate for water. Crops withered, and livestock grew weak. The whispers grew louder. "It's her fault," someone said. "She's brought bad luck to the village." Ada's heart sank. She tried to help, offering food and money to her neighbors, but it wasn't enough. The villagers grew angrier, and soon, they began to avoid her entirely. One stormy night, Ada heard the whisper again. "What do you desire most?" The voice was louder this time, almost demanding. She clutched the pot tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want anything else," she cried. "Just leave me alone." The pot began to glow, but this time, it didn't grant a wish. Instead, the glow grew blinding, and Ada felt a searing pain in her chest. When she woke up, the pot was gone, and so was everything it had given her. The house was back to its broken state, the land was barren, and her siblings were hungry again. Ada fell to her knees, sobbing. She had lost everything, not just the wealth, but the trust of her neighbors and her own sense of peace. From that day forward, Ada vowed never to rely on shortcuts again. She worked tirelessly to rebuild her life, this time with her own 2 hands. Though it was hard, she found a sense of pride and fulfillment in her efforts. The villagers, seeing her sincerity, eventually forgave her. They helped her and her siblings rebuild their lives, and Ada learned the value of community and hard work. The tale of the Magic Calabash became a cautionary story in the village, passed down through generations. And though Ada never saw the pot again, she never forgot the lessons it taught her.